statement for the Minnesota Vikings about Tua Tagovailoa. There have been reports recently, of course, anonymous or former executive says this or this or this or this, that he failed a physical or that he did not reveal all injuries that he's had in the past. Whatever. Certainly sounds to me like somebody wants him to drop. Probably the Miami Dolphins want to make sure that he gets to 5 so they can select him there. There's been conversations about teams who like Justin Herbert better and on and on and on. And you never know what's going to happen on draft night. Todd McShay and Mel Kiper were fighting one year over whether Jimmy Clausen would go number 1 or number 2 overall, and he went in the second round. So it does happen. If Tua falls, Lamar Jackson stunned us when he fell to 32. If Tua falls and is available at 22, you select him, Vikings, and you apologize to no one. And if it turns out to be the worst draft pick you've ever made and the guy falls down the stairs in his first time visiting TCO Performance Center and never walks again, you apologize to no one. You select Tua and you never look back and you go forward with him as potentially your franchise quarterback. But if it blows up in your face, I will never, ever, 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 ever criticize you for it. There is my statement to the Vikings and Tua.
Nobody can criticize you for that. No one. Whether it's a boom or bust pick, and whether he plays at all in 2020 or even 2021, nobody can criticize you for that. Just given the value of the quarterback position, where he is ranked among the best quarterbacks in this draft, arguably 1A, 1B, 1 or 2. If he is there at 22, I think it's irresponsible for a team to not take him. Yes. I think you'd have to.
Yep.
And I've read the stuff. I know Michael Lombardi was saying that he failed a physical, that he uncovered some sort of like previously unreported injury, called him brittle. I don't really know what the long game is there. If Lombardi is trying to, I don't know, like he's not working for a team right now, but if that's any sort of draft rhetoric that is, hey, why don't you go drop this nugget out there, and then it's going to scare off Washington, that's going to scare off Detroit, it's going to scare off Dave Gettleman, and maybe he'll just land at 5 with the Dolphins. It's interesting that this stuff all is coming out now, which I'm not surprised about whatsoever. This is going to dominate every single NFL news headline from now for the next 14 days as we get up to draft night. And it will be intriguing if come 13 days from now, on that Wednesday, if we're starting to hear Miami stir a little bit, or maybe there's another team like the Chargers potentially to stir a little bit. And if it goes away, and if it's no, I'm not, I am fully healthy, because I believe his agent Lee Steinberg, as of like an hour ago, was on 790 The Ticket. I believe that's in the Florida area. And he said that, quote, the prospects doctors have been very clear that Tua's health is fine. There's no recurrence that's going to happen here. Of course, your agent's going to say that and try to squash all the draft rumors. He wants to see his prospect taken as high as possible, get the most money as possible. But this to me kind of feels like some seeds are being planted to specifically have him land in a place whose colors are orange and teal.
Yes, that's very much what it feels like. And in terms of pre-draft stuff in the weeks leading up to the draft, we always have one of these. Remember, Cam Newton's smile was questioned one year, and was it genuine or not? There was last year, it was Charlie Casserly got made fun of by the entire internet because he said something like Kyler Murray doesn't understand football or whatever. Remember, Kyler Murray's going to play baseball. Remember all of that? And how did that work out? No, he was a number 1 overall draft pick, and he was really, really good. So, and it looks like he could be the next franchise quarterback who's a playmaker and takes that team to another level.
Has a great wide receiver.
And on. So oftentimes these, you should just ignore them. They don't mean anything. But if they do, perchance, mean something to someone that Tua drops in the draft, I would even say it's not crazy and totally justifiable if the Vikings wanted to trade up to get him if he was at a certain spot, because there is nothing more valuable than this position, and it's not even close. And I'll give you a great example. When Adrian Peterson ran for 2,097 yards, one of the great running back seasons in the history of our earth, they were number 1 in rushing yards per attempt in the entire National Football League. Guess where the offense ranked in yards total? 20th. So if you don't have a great quarterback, you are stuck. You're not going anywhere. And the league has even changed since 2012 over the last 8 years to be even more toward passing. So if you can draft someone with the potential to be a franchise quarterback, I don't care if you need a guard. I don't care if you need a receiver. I don't care if you need a corner. You draft that player.
Well, yeah, and especially if he falls to 22. And yes, there are injury concerns, and until he plays and until he proves that those are no longer a thing, because he had what? The wrist, he had the ankle, he had the hip. I mean, it's a multitude of things. It's not like, oh, he had a torn ACL and he's recovering from that and he'll be fine. It's the only thing he's experienced. I mean, there is an injury history here that a lot of teams are probably going to get gun shy on. But we knew this was going to be the rhetoric that formed around Tua when pro days were canceled, when pre-draft visits were not a thing. Because he's not having every single doctor of every single team he could have possibly visited touch him and feel him and make sure he's okay, there's going to be these rumors that fly out and fly around. And I think that if you're the Minnesota Vikings, yes, you probably should go get a cornerback at 22 because that is the most pressing need as it stands right now. And then defensive end, and then trade your second first round pick for more picks so you can get wide receivers, et cetera, et cetera. You're not going to be able to do that though if Tua's sitting right there, because I think the temptation is going to be too high. Because at some point you're going to have to move on from Kirk Cousins, even though he's kind of got you by the throat right now on this next contract, even when it looks like it's going to be up in 2023. Going into that, where people are expecting the cap to go way, way, way up and all that stuff, and what his cap hit's going to be, et cetera, et cetera. This is your chance, essentially, to have the contingency plan in place and be ready to go when the time is right and ready to move on, because you've already shown that you're like Jeremiah Searles said on the show 2 weeks ago, that you sold your soul to Kirk Cousins because you had to. Well, you got to find a way out of that if you truly do not think he is anything more than what he is right now. And if Tua's there, you don't have to play him right away. If these injury concerns are still kind of lingering, why not let him sit and make him healthy again? I mean, a year off might not be the worst thing for him.
And think about it this way too. Let's say that this year Kirk repeats what he did last year, wins another playoff game, and with a weakened team has a great performance, and you just really like where you stand with Kirk Cousins going forward. And you could trade Tua anytime you want and get a draft pick back.
Josh Rosen. Yeah, Josh Rosen situation. I'm wondering one thing, though. Just riddle me this, because I know that the rhetoric out there, and it's all, like when I was telling you yesterday about my draft sim, because I tried PFF's new machine that they have out there, and in one of them, because it was based off positional value, and I think their algorithm's a little different, but one of them had the Giants taking Tua one pick before the Miami Dolphins. If that's the case, do you it certainly all signs point to either Fitzmagic for another season, or at least to start the season, and then Josh Rosen, but do they just turn the reins over to Josh Rosen right away?
So that would put them in a really tough position, because they would probably take Herbert, and I think that's a mistake. If you take Justin Herbert with a pick that's that high for someone that I don't look at as having high odds.
Herbert. I wouldn't take Herbert at 5. I'd take a defensive lineman. They need one.
They should continue to fill out their defense. So, think about this. If they win 5 games with Fitzpatrick in the worst roster ever, or they could take, the best tackle. They could take Tristan Wirfs, or they could take Andrew Thomas. And right now, who's playing tackle for the Miami Dolphins? I have no idea. After last year,
losing Tunsil.
Right, exactly. So you then go into camp with Fitzpatrick and Rosen. If Rosen looks like he is better with a team that's better around him, then you give him a shot. Or you could just, Fitzpatrick won 10 games on the maybe one and only good team he ever played for, which was the New York Jets with Brandon Marshall. You go through every other team Fitz has ever played for. There was 1 or 2 in Buffalo that were okay, but they didn't have good defenses. He rarely has ever gotten a shot to play with good teams. I bet you can be fairly competitive in a weakened division without Tom Brady anymore next year if you're continuing to take that long view with the number of players that they've signed, as opposed to trying to win right away. And anyway, if you draft Tua or you draft Herbert, you're not winning right away anyway. So they could wait for the next draft and try to trade up to get Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. That would be a tough one, but continue to stack draft capital. Trade down if you're the Miami Dolphins. Maybe take Jordan Love or Jalen Hurts later. I think if Tua does go off the board, they have all sorts of different options that are good for them, but I fear because they are the Dolphins that they will be desperate and take Justin Herbert.
Yeah, and that's a mistake. That's a mistake. Like you can't get gun shy when you miss out on the guy that you really want, and then that leads you to making a mistake that could set you back 5 years. I mean, we know with the quarterback's position in specific that you can't mess that one up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because if you do, it's several years before you're back in contention to try to get it right again.
Yeah, and I never hate the idea, just for our love for journeyman quarterbacks, to have a journeyman quarterback start in that position and sort of see how it goes. And then, the following year you draft a quarterback. Fans don't love that. They want somebody new in there right away. But like you said, I mean, there's a huge gap in my mind still, despite the reporting and whatever Michael Lombardi said. There's a huge gap between Tua and Justin Herbert for me. And that's where I just, if I'm the Dolphins, I want to trade back and see if he's there later, or take Love instead, or take Jalen Hurts instead. I don't want to waste a pick that high to do that. Let me tell you.